Good morning. Welcome to Contemporary Issues Sunday School class. Haven't seen you for, well, since last year. Right, it's been a long time. So, yes, I know it's an old joke and a bad joke, but it still works. That's right.
It still works.
That's right.
Still works.
And we're all glad to be here in the new year too. Well, we are pleased today to have you all here and to have Mr. Ron Puning here today talk about morality, the right and wrong, the principles of right and wrong, and how we apply them and their place in the world today. So we will do that but first our announcements. Nice to have you with us. Please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen. Susan Sutton, nice to have you. Can you hear me okay? Just double checking. Thank you. And we are recording this for future playback. And any other announcements on things? Well, yes, Peter wants to talk for a moment about next week's presentation that he will do and just tell us a little bit about that.
Hi, folks. Happy New Year. Great to see all of you good friends. Next year, thanks to Steve's invitation, next week's thanks to Steve's invitation, I have the privilege of discussing a discovery we made 50 years ago in New Guinea, where we contacted a group of previously uncontacted people, at least contacted by the outside world, by people like us. So I'm going to share that discovery with you. It was quite a momentous part of my life. And so I hope you can come, bring a guest if you'd like. I know a couple of my guests who are not members of the church are going to be coming. And we'll be thinking about the context of these people and what it means to meet such different and maybe not so different people. So be thinking, and you'll be asking, you can welcome to ask me the toughest questions you have. I may or may not have the answers, but you're welcome to ask the toughest questions you can think of as it relates to a discovery that I was privileged to be a part of. One last point, since these people were previously uncontacted, you might guess that you're all smart people, they don't wear clothes. Therefore, should you be uncomfortable with watching a brief film that includes the contact, I most respect that and welcome if you choose to depart. However, I've shown this film, it's an 8-minute film as a part of my longer presentation, dozens of times to many audiences. I've never received a negative critique. People just look at it and say, oh, these are other people. Isn't that nice?
Different part of the world.
A different part of the world. But I want to alert you to that. They're unclothed, and this is a church. And that's what I'm going to be showing. And you're welcome to ask me any and all questions.
Standing room only.
Yes, as long as we wear clothes, we're in good shape. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll see you next week.
Look forward to that. Okay, and we started a couple minutes early here so we can talk about things in the news. And of course, I want to take a couple minutes here to talk about Venezuela. The news that we arrested the president of Venezuela, and there are pros and cons to that, of course, as you've seen in the news. And I want to hear some of your thoughts too. Ron will allow us to take a few minutes here to talk about it. The pros, of course, in our president's eyes, being that President Maduro was a bad character, murder, drug running for more than 20 years, and his own people wanted a change of government, but were not able to mount a opposition that could overthrow him. And so we took action after many years of sanctions and things that did not work to change his behavior. On the con side, of course, people are saying this, there was no authority from our own Congress. This was unilateral action on the president's part and not even notified anybody in Congress about it. And what would be some other negative parts? That taking over other countries as we now own Venezuela has never worked out well for us in the past. Iraq, Afghanistan, Panama. In 1989, we took over Panama. 23 Marines were killed in that operation, I learned. And that did not end well for many years after that. And so many concerns about how long this will last and what it will cost America and how it will turn out, especially once the warring factions that will undoubtedly come forward, they say, in Venezuela. The generals that still backed Maduro and the drug cartels that are there are expected to fight for control now that that change has been made. So thought we would just discuss that for a minute. Jim has his hand up. There is a microphone to the right.
Was Maduro indicted by the International Court of Justice or anything? Was there any kind of litigation or in any other forum? Does anybody know?
I did not read that, Jim. That's a good
Well,
question.
I don't know, but I know that they have indicted people like him and some other people.
Either by the UN or
International Court of Justice.
Well, I
Well,
don't,
what do you think?
I was just wondering if there was any kind of legal precedent that they could hang their hat on. It doesn't sound like there is.
I don't know for sure.
Well, they just said that he was.
Yes, they just said that it was probably in the US only is what you're saying. Okay, there was no UN or other international body doing that. Yes, Norley.
How are we any different than Russia?
That's right.
Okay,
Hello, Ukraine, Venezuela, and yeah, we're just gonna. I cannot process it.
okay, okay, Eric.
Just having just returned from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua, this feeds into their narrative, which predominates in Nicaragua, that we are the bully, the imperialist North. And right or wrong on Maduro, it feeds into their narrative and their propaganda against Americans, particularly in Nicaragua, which received a lot of support, Cuba and Nicaragua from Venezuela.
Another interesting thing, maybe you didn't hear a smaller story. The president of Colombia is asking China and Russia for protection now against the United States. He's concerned that we will go into Colombia, which neighbors Venezuela, and do that there too. Rachel.
So the question is, does Colombia have oil? Because I don't believe you're there because Maduro's a bad guy.
Yeah, I think oil.
So if Colombia has oil, then he should be afraid. If Colombia does not have oil, then he shouldn't worry about it.
Many people are pointing out the oil is an important factor here. Yes, Larry.
I think Trump thinks that the Constitution is as worthless as this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I did
Other
get a
thoughts?
report
Yes.
from a friend of mine.
microphone, please. Would you grab that microphone over there and this on the side and bring it forward? Thank you so much. Appreciate that. This helps us all to hear a little better.
I do not have a fact of what I'm gonna share with you. But a really good friend of mine who is very concerned about Project 2025. She and I discuss it a lot. She has read that in Project 2025, it was a goal to get oil from Venezuela. Now, I don't have proof of that, but now I want to go back because I've read Project.
See if it was actually written in there.
If it's written in there, just thought I'd share.
And some people are saying they're justifying the oil aspect because they think if that Venezuela's main buyer of its oil was China. And if we hadn't gone in and taken over, China may well have done that to secure that oil, knowing that Venezuela was imploding. So another aspect too.
Good point.
Okay, just a few more comments, then we want to give Ron plenty of time. But I want to ask our Zoomers if they have anything they'd like to say on this. If you do, go right ahead. I see Linda Daniel has her hand up. Go ahead, Linda.
Like many of the actions that have been taken this year, totally against our Constitution, against our separation of powers. And I think most of you know my opinion on the current administration. But it's leading us further down the line of an oligarchy.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, yes, Alan.
The oil issue is a very historical one because as Trump has said, give us back our oil. And it refers to the fact that the American oil companies were kicked out.
That's right.
And the only company that exists there now is Chevron. But between then and now, the oil companies have been trying to recoup the billions and billions of dollars that they lost being kicked out of Venezuela.
Yeah.
Good point. So many aspects of this from all angles. Yes, Rachel.
So there was one other thing, and I'm gonna clarify. I heard this on Fox News. I'm not a supporter of Fox News, but if it's true, what they said is the week before China had just left and they were looking for the rare earth minerals. So there's that also.
Venezuela?
China had just left Venezuela,
Oh, they've been there.
looking for the rare earth minerals, and that's pretty typical of China going all over the world to try to,
Grab that.
find them and grab them for themselves.
Silver.
And people are also saying now that this example of us taking over Venezuela will embolden China to take over Taiwan. They will say that we can take over Taiwan. Look what America did to Venezuela. So many things.
Yeah.
So many arguments on both sides. Ron, you want to weigh in on this?
Just to go back in history, in 1954, British Petroleum predominantly had massive oil refineries in Iran.
That's right.
And they overthrew the leader of Iran
Mossadegh.
in 54 and put in the Shah. And they did it strictly because Iran had repossessed the oil interests.
Nationalized it.
Nationalized it.
Yeah.
So history does repeat itself. And to claim that, there are some American oil properties that were partially nationalized by Venezuela. But you got to reach back pretty far in history. I think it's at least 4 decades back, maybe more. Yeah, interesting history.
We're the most prosperous democracy in South America.
Right.
Before Chavez came in and nationalized all of the oil.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. We will revisit this probably, but let's pray for America and Venezuela. Okay, Ron, thank you.
Okay, let's get up the slides.
Okay.
And a few resources. My favorite magazine, which I've read since I was a junior in high school, Scientific American, super. And there was an article by author Elizabeth Svoboda. And the article is The Neuroscience of Morality. That's what we're going to talk about today. There's a couple full copies of the article over there on that table. So if you want to read the whole 8-10 pages of it in fine print, you're most welcome to a copy. If we run out, if you really want a copy and didn't get one today, I can arrange to make additional copies. I'm also inspired. There's a sign I've always loved on the subject of morality. You can read that. It's like my mom always said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And that's, I've always felt, and most of us feel, we need morality.
Remember your mom saying that?
There's also a handout today that has the first 2 pages of that handout are called The Origin of Morality. And we'll go into that in a little more detail as we move into the lesson. And then the last 4 pages are a classic American example of somebody who had tremendous moral courage to do something right. Thomas Garrett, which hardly anybody knows about. But as your homework assignment, you can take it home and read the good things about Thomas Garrett and why he is so admirable. Some other books Maybe one of the top 3 rabbis in this country, till at least he passed away, I think, about a year and a half ago, was Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. And his last book before he passed was titled simply Morality. And I'll pass that around, not that you'll want to read it, but you may want to read a couple reviews of the book on the back leaf. For example, the Jerusalem Post said, "This book is a wake-up call to the world that has become self-obsessed, self-centered, lonely, and whose moral standards have withered as a result." So there's the rabbi's book. There's also a book written by the same lady who wrote this Scientific American article. Her first book, and maybe only book so far, is What Makes a Hero? Some things worth thinking about. Okay. We'll mention a hero in our slides in a few minutes about an immigrant sergeant who was at the Pentagon during the January 6th event. And he's written a book about his experience. We'll mention him in the lesson this morning. So let's get into the slides. We start with a Calvin and Hobbes cartoon, which I'm not sure deals with the afterlife. Calvin's sitting there with his favorite tiger buddy. How many knew Calvin and Hobbes in comics? Yeah. And Calvin says, "I wonder where we go when we die." And his tiger answers back, "Pittsburgh." You mean if we're good or bad? Sorry, you Pennsylvanians. Next one. All right. Again, this is Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, and this the right-handed photograph shows him chatting with the prior pope, and he said societal freedom requires morality. You can't have a strong society and a strong country, a free one at least, without morality infusing your economic and political system. Yeah, back it off a little bit. Morality must include, in his opinion, concern for the welfare of others, an active commitment to justice and compassion, and a willingness to commit not to just self-good, but all of us together. So those are the key points that are found in his latest book. And he is, of course, a very well-respected.
I don't think he would have liked the present administration.
I would have to agree with you on that. Next slide. All right. There was a great song in the mid-60s, and some of the words, "Go ahead and hate your neighbor, go ahead and cheat a friend, do it in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end." Does anybody remember that song?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And it came out of what movie?
Billy Jack.
Billy Jack. Okay. And that was a great song. One tin soldier rides away. And if you get a chance, listen to that song. And of course, I love the saying to the right. They don't see the wrong in their actions because they surround themselves with people who normalize it. That's part of what we'll look at. Next one. All right. Okay. And her article in Scientific American, she starts out by telling a story of a gentleman by the name of Christopher Bentley. And he started a company called Bellatorum Resources. He founded a company for buying drilling rights for oil and gas. He went out, particularly in areas like Texas, New Mexico, told people, we'll give you so much money and give us the drilling rights for your property. So he sent out a letter to landowners offering to lease their rights, but it was full of incorrect information. In other words, it was, as the lawyers say, a false or an erroneous, seriously erroneous prospectus. When the letters didn't generate big profits, he poured the investor money into new risky deals, which ended up losing most of the investor money. So he got more and more desperate. He finally began making bogus transactions and putting them on the books, committing more than $40 million worth of fraud, which is kind of a biker right now compared to some of the things going on.
Silver paper,
So
silver.
Yeah, and so it started as an honest error in the letters. He really hadn't intended to be deceptive and erroneous in that perspectives. But he realized, oh, shoot, I screwed up. I really painted this rosy picture that just isn't true. And he started spiraling down the, what we sometimes call the slippery slope. Next one. No, back one. Okay. When I did the lesson on comic books, this is a slice out of that one comic book story from The Flash. And the guy is saying in this comic scene, during the time I succeeded in embezzling 300K of the depositor's money, I covered up my crime by juggling the books. No one suspected I lived modestly and then the money, but recently something's wrong here. The auditors came in. I've got to work fast now. The thefts are being discovered. This is what happened to Bentley. Next slide. Okay. Bentley has subsequently written a book saying, I'm deeply remorseful for what I've done. The purpose of my book is threefold. I want to send a harsh warning to anybody contemplating doing what I did and tell them it was just not worth it. I know it's very easy to go down this wrong path. And there's a slice of the indictment that he received from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Committee, and I believe he did serve some time, but I'll have to look that up. Next slide. Okay. So when Chris put out this false letter, again, he hadn't deliberately planned to make it false, but he got in there, and he really said that he realized he had to make a choice. He said he could either confess, tell the people that he had screwed up and they're going to all lose their money and shut down the company. That was the course he could have taken, but he decided it would disappoint too many people, including himself. So he continued the fraud to keep the employees and investors with paychecks and support many employees who had moved to, I believe, Texas from far away, relocated to take this lucrative new wonderful job. So he was a classic example of people caught in what they call the lesser of two evils position, where he could either, just shut the company down, send everybody home, fire everybody, or continue the deception to try to keep it going for a while. And he took the path of keeping the deception going and flowering it and growing it. There's a saying that's one of my very favorites by physicist Richard Feynman. First principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. I always think it's a good idea to be honest with yourself and to be able to look into your soul and acknowledge reality and not fool yourself. Next one. Inside the brain, they say there's no single circuit. Back up one, I think we might have missed one. Yeah, no, we got that one. So go back to, yeah. There's no single circuit in your brain that controls your morality. It's a combination of everything. The primitive lizard brain, the amygdala right in the center, is the emotional center, and it's not very good at moral decision-making, if at all. It actually may give us a few signs to do the wrong thing. If it recognizes fear, it might tell us, I'm afraid, don't take the ethical stand, if the ethical stand might bring bad consequences. So the amygdala can work against this out of fear, telling us, shh, don't let anybody know about this. Okay. Next one. All right. Morality has deep roots in our evolution. In the handout, there's a great 2-page summary of where morality came from. It didn't come from the 10 Commandments. Of course, the 10 Commandments didn't get into the human race until we were well along in our evolutionary cycle and the emergence of Homo sapiens. But it came from our very evolution. as the article, the handout points out, if you were going to survive with your caveman tribe group, where you had hunter gathering going on, and you went out and hunt mammoth, and everybody had jobs to do, you needed certain attributes. If you didn't get along with the group, they would ostracize you. You'd get shunned. If you weren't willing to carry your load as able, wouldn't help in the hunt, you were ostracized. Humans have evolved a cheater detection module. We track who contributes and who freeloads. All through the world, they look at societies. No society likes a group where certain people simply don't contribute or make any effort to help the group. Particularly if it's like a commune and you're trying to all survive, work together as a team. Of course, we also know that even bloodthirsty pirates of the Caribbean who could go out and rape, kill, murder, rob, throw people overboard, make them walk the plank. Even within them, once they collected all this booty, they would get extremely angry if the pirate leader didn't divide the booty evenly. So, and they also have done studies with infants. They've done little puppet shows in front of very, very small children, 6 months, 8 months, 10-month-old. And they show them movies that like be 2 teddy bears, both look the same, but one of the teddy bears exhibits what we will call kind, loving, friendly gestures. The other one is kind of a, semi-mean, hitting somebody or not sharing or whatever. And they show there's a tremendous turning of the infant's attention and mind and sympathy to the kind and the moral acting puppet show. They've done many studies showing that infants are already sensing what's good and bad, and they want to go with the nice.
We're drawn more to nice people.
They want to go with the nice guys, the nice girls. Also, of course, morality and cultural norms influence which traits tend to rise in different populations. And guilt and shame helps us in a group and helps the group survive. So moral attributes have helped humans survive when they've gone together as groups, tribes, families. Moral attributes even help hold small family units together. Next one. Okay, here's an opinion of not the current Pope, his immediate predecessor, Francis. He said, it's not necessary to believe in God to be a good person. In a way, the traditional notion of God is outdated. One can be spiritual, but not religious. It is not necessary to go to church and give money. For many, nature can be a church. Some of the best people in history did not believe in God, while some of the worst deeds were done in his name. So he had a realization that good and bad doesn't necessarily come from adhering to joining a church. It goes much deeper than that. Alrighty, one of my favorite musicals that I think is appearing right now or soon to appear in downtown Denver. Does anyone recognize that scene on the right? Yeah, it's Professor Harold Hill. Remember? Right, he came into town and he said, we gotta find something to stir up, so he went on a crusade against pool halls. Town's gonna go to hell in a handbasket because of the pool halls. Okay. The author of the article, Ms. Svoboda, said that we may start horrified at the thought of lying, cheating, or hurting someone. But as we start engaging in wrongdoing over and over, our brains go numb to it. Soldiers certainly tell of getting numb to killing and a willingness to do savage acts to even women and children with little hesitancy. World War II rape of Nanking killed several 100,000. Here's a book I read many years ago on a US soldier who was in one of the units that went across Europe, and he told the story of the fighting. And he told examples of how seeing so much killing and life raced so quickly really did influence people. They could grow numb to it. They could spray a round of machine gun fire into an empty building, or maybe a building that even had civilians in it, and it didn't bother their conscience very much anymore. So war can do terrible things to humanity and human kindness.
My Lai massacre.
Okay, exactly. The zest for personal gain can be overpowering, particularly when people start lusting for power, money, sex, and the things that draw up human frailties out. They found that if you really get an overpowering zeal for some of these things, you start learning to compromise your morals severely. You'll even gamble the lives of other people, put their lives at risk, or even kill them to advance your power, prestige, your sexual pleasure. We do know when highly stressed, hormones are released known to interfere with high cognitive thinking. So when you're under great stress, you are a little more easily compromised. You don't have time to think, or just your brain mental processes become more susceptible to compromising. To quote the author from her article, most feel a cow pie stench inside themselves when they lie, cheat, and steal from others. But as moral adapting sets in, you can start down the slippery slope. There's a picture, not a very good one, in the bottom right corner of a story, a legend of Faust. Anybody heard of Faust? Okay. And there's the phrase a Faustian bargain, but this is I think mostly a German legend, but it was in some other areas of Europe, 1500s and 1600s. And it's a story of a man, a magician, who sold his soul to the devil for gain. And of course, I think that it was the musical Damn Yankees. Has anybody seen that? Where the guy sells his soul to the devil to be a great baseball star. And we see this theme occur several times in some literature and whatever. But the author of the article says that gradual moral adaptation occurs. People repeat small thefts. So they say you can start going down that slippery slope by starting a bunch of small things and start doing them often. So, well, nobody will miss if I take $5 out of the register today and $5 next Friday, and times are tight all up to 10. And next thing you know, they're really into it. I did see an article where Kroger stores is going to be retreating, and they say they're seeing theft rise substantially now. A lot of people are going into their grocery stores and saying, I'm having trouble meeting my family food budget, and this store is making enough profit, I'll just help myself and slip some steaks under my jacket. All right. Okay. There's a movie, it's a good one, Jim Carrey's, called Fun with Dick and Jane. I think it came out around 2004, but it's based on the Enron scandal. Okay. I enjoy that movie. Enron employees, for example, dismissed or pressured those who tried to expose or question its suspected financial practices. The author also draws upon it in her article, a lady named Betty Benson, who worked for WorldCom, and it was the second largest long-distance telephone company in the United States in 2002. And for a period of 3 years, the senior executives engaged in accounting fraud, and it wasn't just a little bit back when. 3.8 billion in fraudulent balance sheet entries. And poor Betty, there on the lower right picture, got involved in the early going. She wanted to resign after her first fraudulent transaction. And when she got pressured, come on, put this so many $1 million false transaction on the books. This will help out meeting our monthly goals. She didn't want to do it, but the boss said, come on, this won't cause you any problems. She surrendered to that request. And next thing you know, they came back and said, well, that worked last week. We want you to do it again. And she considered resigning, but she was encouraged by many people around her who were fine with the fraud. No, it wasn't just her or just her boss. The whole department was kind of getting seriously compromised. They were engaging in a kind of a group conspiracy to do some serious fraud. And by the time they got done, they entered almost 4 billion in fraudulent transaction and overstated the assets of the company by 11 billion. At that time, it was the largest accounting fraud in American history. I think it's been beaten since then. But what we get from this is peer pressure can really warp people to do bad things.
I worked for a company way back when I was 20. I worked for a company way back in my 20-somethings when I was just learning to be a financial analyst. And we were the Enron before Enron. And fortunately, I wasn't involved with it because it was just a peon, but it was company-wide. And and they defrauded the stockholders. And when I actually got to talk to one of the executives after the whole thing had been uncovered and everybody was going to jail, he said to me, we thought we would make it up each quarter. And they were a group, right? So they were a company and they were with their buddies and we're all helping each other. And they didn't see it necessarily as fraud at the time. They thought they would just make it up the next quarter. And it is a slippery slope. And he was trying to teach me something and I never forgot it.
Wow.
It's all about earnings per share.
Yeah.
Okay,
Look at Boeing.
next one. Fortunately, they have found with morality, you can not only go down the slippery slope, but you can go up the slope. They find that as people start repeating good moral ethics and staying strong, that they actually grow in moral character. Particularly when you embrace some bottom line moral values and firmly decide before anything ever happens out in the world, I'm not going to ever, you may still fail and succumb to temptation, but it's really good if you can kind of implant in yourself some basic principles that you say, I'm never going to steal. I'm not going to cheat on my income tax. I'm not going to, do things that you know are wrong. So you can listen to your better angels and find deep purpose and joy aligning with their actions. I always love the Flintstones cartoon, particularly their where he's getting talked to by his conscience, the good angel and the bad angel. Spinning off, there's another good book titled Where No Roads Lead. I don't have it or have read it yet. And it's about some Polish Jews who hide in the Polish woods several years to evade being taken to concentration camps. They point out that many are able to find mental health and comfort and live with themselves, knowing they've done the right thing. In other words, you really do, if you take a stance, do what you know is right. And even if it costs you greatly, you can put your head in the pillow at night, be grieved by the penalty you pay for having done good, but certainly have a great inner peace with yourself that usually will last you the rest of your life for having done the right thing. Next one. And this next, and of course, the book I'm passing around is by a man by the name of, I may be mispronouncing it, Aquilino Gonell. And he was a Dominican American former sergeant, U.S. Capitol Police. He had also served in the Army in Iran, Iraq. But he got injured in the January 6th attack on the Capitol, and he stood strong. He testified what he had seen, what had happened to him, and he paid a price. He was persecuted for honestly expressing and describing what had happened to him and some of his other Capitol Police. As he said, telling the truth about January 6th put him in extremist crosshairs, but he noted that I can live with myself knowing that I have met history. So next one. All right. Well, we have to at least look at a few Trump examples. We try to avoid extreme politics in here, but I don't think we can deny that this person has really done some pretty morally decrepit things. Extensive business fraud, guilty of sexual assault. There's more and more pictures coming out every day. He was indicted for the biggest scandal. Jack Smith has testified just in the last couple of weeks to a Senate committee, and they have now, just in the last couple of days, released the full results of his testimony. But to sum it up, Jack Smith found that there is incontrovertible, overwhelming evidence that the president was behind the Capitol attack, even flying in extremists participated in that attack on the Capitol. And then, of course, the document theft, boxes, man, just tons of boxes of secret documents taken down to Mar-a-Lago and then mishandled and deceptively kept from government sources that were trying to receive them. Okay, another person who was to be commended for moral courage was Liz Cheney. Her book, Oath and Honor, by the way, is up here on the shelf for anybody who would like to borrow it and read it again. But she had the courage to literally sacrifice her full political career and acceptance in the GOP by speaking out and speaking honestly. And if you read her book, it shows nothing but it's not filled with my opinion, or it's filled with factual, incontrovertible factual information. But again, it gets down to the facts that small acts of moral courage can build us up and give us the strength of character to stand greater temptations and trials later in life. And I think we also have to dig into our soul and ask ourselves, what if taking a serious, correct moral stand would cost me my job or my home or my basic financial future? Would I step forward? And all of us have to answer that. Okay. Neutral trajectories are changeable. Early brain patterns for moral behavior grow stronger with use. So if you start taking the right stand, doing the right thing, you build yourself up. As you start compromising, you weaken your moral armor, shall we say, and more easily, readily led astray. Early goals to strive for beauty, integrity, honesty, and virtuous action via repeated behaviors help lock us up into a higher morality level. Of course, some people say, I don't want it to higher morality level. I want to, live life to its fullest in their definition, which means get all you can all you get.
Well, what's left?
Interestingly, yes, you can be trained on moral integrity. 2023 study in China, participants received 8 weeks of mindfulness and meditation training, and they found that they were less motivated to earn money doing things that weren't helping others. So people can be trained. There's, of course, the example of Nathan Hale, who in the Revolutionary War, and I think this was mentioned in the Ken Burns documentary,
It was, yeah.
that he had the courage, the unflinching courage to be hanged, saying, I regret that I have but one life to give for my country. Next one. Of course, we have the biblical example, Jesus' temptation in the wilderness. And there were really 3 main challenges in that temptation. Turning stones to bread, which is physical desire, jumping from the temple, pride, testing God, and finally worshiping Satan, that's power and ambition. So this example of Jesus's temptation showed him in an exemplary way resisting the basic moral temptations. All right, we're almost ready for more discussion. A 13th century famous theologian, Thomas Aquinas, he saw integrity as synonymous with beauty that transcends outward appearance. And he taught that striving towards moral ideals gives people a profound sense of meaning in life. For those that are searching for meaning in life and better undergirding, Aquinas felt strongly that standing up for what's right and following the example of Thomas Garrett in your handout, which is worth reading, gave people a better sense of self-worth than just about anything. Bentley, he was the man we first mentioned in the slide, who had gone awry with the oil fraud, contemplated suicide many times as he slid down into drinking and alcoholism and everything else to try to use his conscience. And of course, Dietrich Bonhoeffer's saying, he said, yes to God requires no to all injustice, to all evil, to all lies, to all oppression and violation of the weak and poor. So some interesting there. Jimmy Carter. Ethical standards are essential. They don't change from one job to another. Goes on to say, honesty, truthfulness, integrity, they're always there. And whenever a leader violates these basic principles through arrogance or other things, bad things happen. Okay, on our final slide. I mentioned this one last week. This is on the marquee of a Methodist church. Yeah. Live your life well so we don't have to lie at your funeral. That's a good one. And the little happy face that happiness is the new rich, inner peace, the new success, health is the new wealth, kindness is the new cool. All right, I've talked enough. Let's get some comments from this illustrious group here. Thoughts about morality, temptations, etc. Peter.
Thank you.
Microphone.
Oh, is it right here?
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to build on 2 of the excellent points that Ron's made. Thank you, Ron, for a superior presentation. The first relates back to January 6th and recommended for you good folks, by coincidence, in today's New York Times is an extensive editorial, 2-page full opinion about what's happened January 6th and thereafter under Trump. It's a huge, long, powerful carefully documented editorial just in today's Sunday New York Times. The second point, building on one of Ron's important points about implanting these principles, which I strongly agree with the way he phrased it. I've written about something called moral obligation, and Ron Courses suggested that today. And in my writings, I talk about the woulds. I say it lightheartedly, but with serious intent. Would, could, should. The woulds in our language. And here's what I mean by that with moral obligation. What would you do, or I do, if you heard about a disastrous problem that required your help with somebody, for example, who's vulnerable? What would you do? Secondly, could. What could you do given your skills, your resources, your opportunities? And what should you do? What you should do is, if the first two woulds are in place, you must act. You should and you must act to help. That's your moral obligation.
Thanks, Peter. Well, you were talking, Ron, I was thinking of the book Mere Christianity, where C.S. Lewis talks about natural law and how even young children who haven't been taught that a Christian faith will say that if one child is given more than the other one, they will point that out to each other. That's not fair. And that was C.S. Lewis's way of pointing out that God has put inside each of us a inclination toward what he calls natural law.
Interesting.
You know, being a teacher for years, and I, worked a lot with young children.
I'll lean closer.
Oh,
Just hold
here?
it closer.
Yes, yes.
In working with children, especially young children that are coming to school in kindergarten, they know what's right and wrong. They do. And as they go through the educational system, and especially as they get older, peer influence can, even though they know that's wrong, they might still do it because of the peers that you were talking about. Anyway.
Let me play the devil's advocate to that though, Colleen, if I could.
You sure can.
In a nice way.
Devil.
I think today a lot of us that are good people don't always know what's right or wrong in certain situations. I know good people today who say we did the right thing in Venezuela to help those people and stop drugs from flowing. And some of us say it's the wrong thing to do. So it's not always easy to tell in today's world what is right and what is wrong. And then even if we do something that's wrong, we justify it saying that there's a greater good out of doing something wrong in the short term, when in the long term, it's going to yield a greater good for everybody. So I have this overwhelming feeling sometimes that it's not easy to tell what's right and wrong today, and probably never has been that
However,
easy.
but you know something, Steve? This is something that's bothering me about our present administration. If I was teaching school today, and my kids were reading, especially like junior high and high school, and they're reading some of the things that this administration is doing, it just blows my mind, because they're looking at the president as a moral image of our country. And then they're seeing these things happen. There. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's like my mom always said, what the hell is wrong with you?
So Rachel and then Alan. And then I'm going to ask our Zoomers to weigh in too. So give them
To
a
your point, we have to be, it's becoming normalized. The amoral or unmoral ways of behaving. And I kept thinking that, everybody knows that that's wrong, but it's not true. And if you belong to the group of Fox News, or you belong to, a Trump organization, that's your group. And, so the moral compass isn't necessarily working very well these days.
Boy, Alan.
Thanks, Ron, for the nice presentation. Also, thank you for your article or your story about Thomas Garrett
Okay.
in the handout.
Mhm.
If you haven't read it, I read it real quickly before class, and it struck a personal chord with me because some of you may know this, but my father was intern during World War II. And he was going to the University of Southern California at the time, and he was asked within a very short time to drop and sell all of his personal belongings and go to Manzanar, which was an internment camp in Lone Pine, California. Well, I had several opportunities to sit down with my father and ask him what it was like to be an intern as an American citizen, to be thrown in a relocation camp. And he had all of his personal belongings stored somewhere in Los Angeles because he had no time to sell anything, but to just store it in this house. And while he was in camp, it was arson. And he lost everything.
Wow.
And he said during this time where all the Japanese Americans in Los Angeles were being asked to give up their businesses, their homes, to go to this camp, he said the one religious group that assisted the Japanese Americans during this horrible but very emotional time, right after Pearl Harbor. You know, a lot of Americans, if they saw an Asian-looking person, they would say, he's the enemy. And it was so emotionally high-strung. But in this environment, the one religious group that stood up for the Japanese Americans and actually helped them were the Quakers.
Quakers.
And Thomas Garrett, read this story because there's this another example of the moral example of the Quakers, even back in the days of slavery, where they assisted with the Underground Railroad and helped free many slaves through the Underground Railroad Act. But I tell you, it really struck a personal chord, and thank you very much.
Okay. Thank
All
you,
right.
Alan. Very good. Our Zoomers, I want to go to you. We've got about 4 minutes left. Would you like to weigh in on anything here? Questions or comments? Okay, if you do, just go right ahead. Ron, final thoughts? Last few minutes? Or is that Jim in the back?
Jim, that's good. That's Jim.
The one thing that I think is missing from the conversation, or just touched on very lightly, is money. And I think that money is the common denominator in almost all of these dilemmas that we face.
The
And
root of all evil.
it is a disaster to see what is happening with the spread of wealth in the United States, the spread of wealth around the world, the polarization of wealthy versus the common people. And it's very, very easy to justify immorality when there are lots of zeros to the left of the decimal point. I think that this is where we come into a discussion that is really, really hard to fight.
Excellent point. Also on the areas that are gray areas, where there is debate, is this moral? even if you have to struggle with those, get the ones right that are clear cut, and you'll be well on your way to having a much better world. There will always be some of those gray areas, but make sure you get right, get correct, take the right stand on the ones you're sure about.
How about war in general?
Oh, that's 60 seconds.
Yeah, right. The war is evil. We don't want to go to war. It's a bad thing, but it's justified. It's one of those green areas,
Going, you know,
right?
a lot of little hot spots out there. It's kind of scary.
It doesn't always be a clear right and wrong.
This and.
Microphone to her if there's one close to her, please. Thank you.
I Googled this question, about whether the United States can elect a new president if we are at war. And because I was trying to figure out what is Trump's motivation for all that he's doing. And what I got from AI is that we have elected a new president in time of war in the past. So someone had said to me that his motivation is to get us involved in as many wars as possible to keep himself in office.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
The draft dodger.
Okay.
All righty.
Final thoughts, Ron?
Thank you.
You got to wrap up.
Steve and I are working on a lesson for just a couple weeks from now that will touch on some of these, what's your highest goal in life? Love, unselfishness, things like that. And it's from an article by
David Brooks.
Yeah, so that'll be an interesting one. We also have a lesson in the making on coming up with a revised 10 Commandments. Which even the Catholic Church has said they want to drop at least one of the 10 Commandments and put in verse, I think from John, where Jesus says, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another." So we'll talk about that in a future lesson.
So which one do they want to drop?
Well, we're actually going to work on as a class project. We're going to look at a couple of proposed new sets of 10 Commandments. And update. So, all right. So,
Thanks, everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Last week, I said,